Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to another episode of Wicked
Mysterious.
I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm Danny.
And this is a mini mystery I got for you.
Mini Mystery Monday.
Shit.
I got you.
You got it, girl. That's why I keep you around.
I wish people could see us. The faces. The faces are everything.
Someday. So before I get into this topic, I do want to put in a little tiny bit of a disclaimer. It does involve children's deaths, which I know you do not like, Danny, but you're going to be okay. It's very, very mild.
I trust you. Mild children's
Yes,
death.
it's very mild. And it also...
Very light.
And this is a serious subject. Not that child death isn't a serious subject, because that also is. But there is a little bit of content that talks about suicide. So it's a suicide warning. If that's triggering for you, this might not be the episode for you. It's just a little tiny piece of it, though. And are we putting in the little...
timestamps?
Little timestamps?
Yep.
Maybe we can put a little note for not just this episode. I just mean like any kind of sensitive content, you know?
Sure.
Okay. So this is the story of the Pollock twins. One Sunday in 1957, two sisters tragically died while walking to church after being hit intentionally by a vengeful woman who had just lost custody of her children. Overwhelming evidence indicates that the sisters were born again to the same parents less than a year after their deaths, but this time as twin sisters. This is the first reincarnation case we're covering. Let's get into it.
Of many.
Of many.
Of many to come.
Enter the music.
I lied. I don't know this one. I was thinking of those twin girls that are, maybe it is them?
Oh, maybe.
They ended up in like institutions and...
Oh, no.
No? Okay.
No. Reincarnation, also known as rebirth, transmigration, or in ancient Greek-inspired texts, metempsychosis, is the philosophical or religious concept that the non-physical essence of a living being begins a new life in a different physical form or body after biological death. John Pollock grew up in Bristol in the 1920s and was originally raised in the Church of England before converting to Catholicism. Very religious, but on the contrary, he believed in reincarnation on almost an obsessive scale after finding a book about it when he was 9 years old. The Catholic religion does not believe in reincarnation, believing it is incompatible with death. John stated about his childhood beliefs in an interview, quote, "I would pray to God to show proof of reincarnation, proving that I was right over the priests," end quote. John grew up and married Florence, who converted to Catholicism for him. They were a good, level-headed, and ambitious pair, devoted to their religion. Yes.
I have a question.
What's your question?
Why did he want to believe in reincarnation so bad?
He found a book and read it.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It
spiked his curiosity. And then he took that book really serious, I guess. Because, he was borderline, obsessive about it.
Yeah.
Which doesn't fit into that religion. So I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool shit.
Thinking outside the box.
Yes. The Pollocks were your average family. Florence and John owned a grocery and milk delivery business, and they worked very long days, Monday through Saturday. So the majority of raising their children was by their maternal grandmother. The Pollocks had 2 older sons and 2 younger daughters. Their oldest daughter was born in 1946 and was 11 years old, and her name was Joanna. The youngest was born in 1951 and was 6 years old, and her name was Jacqueline. Joanna was very nurturing and motherly to Jacqueline, They loved playing house, and Joanna was always the mother. Ironically, Joanna had a premonition that she would die young and never grow up, often stating, "I will never be a lady." The girls were inseparable and loved playing dress-up and acting in plays they would create from their imaginations. They loved playing hairstylist, especially on their father. They were described as, and that's just so cute.
Yeah.
They were described as kind, caring, generous, and a pair of great kids by those who knew them best. On May 5th, 1957, it was a beautiful and sunny spring morning. The family were preparing for Sunday church, as they always did, in their Sunday best. The youngest children, the sisters, were dressed and ready and waiting for the rest of the family. There was a knock on their door, and it was their neighbor, 9-year-old Anthony Layden. He was on his way walking to church and requested that the girls walk with him. The Pollocks didn't see any harm in the girls going with Anthony. After all, he was a good boy and friend, and the church was only up the road. Anthony was actually due to be the altar boy that morning. The three took off hand in hand and started on their way up the road to St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church. As they enjoyed the beautiful spring morning, they were feeling happy and excited about their independence. What no one could have known was that very morning in the same town, a very depressed woman would lose a custody battle over her 2 teen children, and she would mentally snap. She took a lethal quantity of meds in an effort to end her life, and then got in her car and drove off towards the Pollock side of town. She saw the 3 children walking happy, and her focus was locked in on them. She accelerated towards them, intentionally hitting them, throwing their bodies through the air across the sidewalk, and pinning them against a brick wall. Jacqueline and Joanna died instantly, and Anthony died on his way to the hospital in the ambulance. It was a complete tragedy. The driver's name was Marjorie Wynn. Marjorie was angry and had been going through a downward spiral of depression since she lost her husband 5 years earlier. Losing the custody of her 2 teen daughters was the final straw for her. Marjorie survived the crash and her overdose with the emergency medical intervention that she received as a result. Mom and Dad were devastated and had very conflicting beliefs about their daughter's passing. Mom couldn't bear to think of the girls, and Dad felt the opposite, and in fact didn't just believe that the girls would come back to them, he knew the girls would come back. After all, he was an avid believer in reincarnation and would tell anyone that would listen about his theory. He claimed on the day of the accident he had a vision of them in heaven, and that the girls' future reincarnation was an unexplainable knowing for him. He felt great relief and stress in his grieving from his certainty that they would be reunited and get to love their girls again. John's belief was helpful through his own grieving, but made things difficult for Florence. He would often go into an upstairs room and feel their presence there. Florence felt the opposite. She felt depressed, extreme pain from the memories, and hopelessness. The girls' memories were too hard to bear for her, and she wanted their stuff packed up and stored away out of sight, but to be kept forever. The couple's contrasting beliefs took a serious toll on their marriage and almost ended in divorce. But just 8 months after the accident, some joy. Florence became pregnant. Hooray!
Yay!
Yay! The pregnancy was a shock, and the parents were over the moon. Certain this was the sisters' time to come back, the husband excitedly promised his wife that they would have twins, and Joanna and Jacqueline's souls would get to live again through the new pregnancies. But to his surprise, at their first prenatal visit, there was only 1 heartbeat detected. They would have just 1 baby. John was having dreams and visions of having twins, so he was sure the doctors were mistaken, and persuaded Florence to prepare for 2 anyway. This was extremely difficult for Florence to tolerate. Fetal heartbeat and palpitations and scans were all healthy and good throughout the pregnancy, and exactly 1.5 years after Jacqueline and Joanna's deaths, Florence gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, and then another. Identical twin girls. This was a natural conception, no scientific intervention, and there were no twins on either side of the family. Twins was a true shock, and of course, Dad was not surprised at all. On October 4th, 1958, Jillian and Jennifer entered the world, and almost immediately it was apparent that Jennifer shared some odd similarities to her former sister, Jacqueline. Quick little note, I really wish they weren't all J sounds because it does get confusing.
Yeah.
Like even for me, researching this, so many times I had to look back and be like, wait a minute, was it Joanna who was all that? So the second set of the twins are Jennifer and Jillian is spelt with a G, which is weird. I don't know if it's really Gillian, but I'm going to assume it's Jillian.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that was like the mom not wanting to do two J's again, but still having like a thing for J names and still, you know what I mean? Because I have a thing for D names, obviously. So I could see that. Like she wants to, but she doesn't want to like really make, like replacing the girls before. But yeah, so it was almost instant that they realized, Jennifer had some similarities to Jacqueline. Jennifer was born with 2 birthmarks, one on her left hip, identical to the thumbprint-shaped birthmark in the same location on her deceased sister Jacqueline. The other was on her forehead above her right eye, which was similar to a scar that Jacqueline had above her eye. Jillian was born with no birthmarks. When the twins were a few months old, the family moved to East Willie Bay, about 30 miles away from Hexham. Shit. That's what the beginning paragraph talked about. Oh. They lived in Hexham, England.
Okay. That's right.
Sorry, guys. Beginning of my paragraph was gone, and I just kind of threw it together. But yeah, so they lived in Hexham, England. I feel like it was like a market town in Hexham, England. So when the twins were a few months old, the family moved to East Willie Bay, about 30 miles away from Hexham. What is wicked strange is as soon as they were able to talk, it was apparent that the girls seemed to remember the Hexham home. And by the time they were 4, they talked about their old home in Hexham constantly. This was something the twins' skeptical mother had no explanation for. Remember, they were just a few months old when they moved from Hexham. So they decided to take the 4-year-old twins back to their birth town for their very first time. And to the mother's surprise, the girls recalled landmarks that their late sisters frequented, such as their elementary school, and even had a directional sense of which way their favorite playground and swing set was. The twins shockingly recognized and identified their sister's old friends and the old home's neighbors by name.
Wow. And this was age 4?
They were only 4.
Wow.
Yeah. Growing up, the twins had almost identical mannerisms and body builds as Jacqueline and Joanna did. The firstborn twin, Jillian, was taller and slender like the older sister Joanna was, with Jennifer being a bit shorter and stockier as Jacqueline was. They even walked alike. Joanna walked with more of a gait than Jacqueline did, and this was also true for Jillian and Jennifer. The similarity in personalities was striking. Jillian was very motherly to and protective of Jennifer. Like their sisters, the twins were super close to each other, of course, and both were especially close to their grandmother that had helped raise Jacqueline and Joanna so much because their parents were always at work. Mm-hmm. Their grandmother was often their first choice, even over their own mother, who was home and actively raising them. So when it came to like comfort or, wanting something, they were going to grandma before their mom. The twins loved to comb people's hair, especially their fathers.
Wow.
This is something that John loved most and felt most connected with his deceased daughters. Like Joanna, Jillian was the more social one and showed the same early interest in acting and dressing up in creative costumes as Joanna had. Jillian acted much older than her age, much more mature than Jennifer. The twins loved the same games and foods that their corresponding sisters loved and preferred. The girls had a serious phobia of cars. This is where it gets good. And it was most apparent when they were outside on a sidewalk or especially when crossing a road. Their parents knew the girls used extreme caution crossing because they were being taught early on to be very cautious, of course, and always hold hands, but this was different. This was genuine fear at the sound of an engine revving or a vehicle driving too close. One time, the girls were walking with their family when a car in a nearby alleyway started its loud engine suddenly, and the girls screamed and clung to each other in terror, crying, "The car! It's coming for us!" They also had reoccurring nightmares of being struck by a car and car accidents. At the time of Jacqueline's death, she had been learning to write and was very stubborn with a fist grasp on her pencil. Her teacher was concerned and asked her parents to smack her hand every time she grabbed the pencil that way, hoping it would correct it. When Jillian and Jennifer began writing, Jillian immediately held the pencil properly and easily, while Jennifer held it exactly how Jacqueline insisted on holding it. She did eventually start to hold it correctly at age 7, but even as an adult, she claimed that she would oftentimes revert back to that natural first reaction of holding it incorrectly. When Joanna and Jacqueline were killed, Florence couldn't bear seeing all of their favorite dolls and toys, so they were safely packed up and stored. The grieving mother certainly could not throw them out. One day, Florence decided to go retrieve the stored totes containing the deceased sisters' favorite dolls and various favorite toys at the times of their death. They each had one doll that they loved, and when the 2 dolls were presented, the twins excitedly went for the prospective sister's favorite and called them the names that their late sisters had called them. Jillian claimed Joanna's and Jennifer claimed Jacqueline's. Not only did they each claim them by name, the specific doll their reincarnated souls had, but the girls still recalled which toys were gifts from family and friends and which were from Santa at Christmas. The twins fought over none of the toys. They basically knew exactly whose was whose. Florence had come around to the idea that something extraordinary was going on with her daughters. More and more details were coming from the girls that were making it impossible not to believe. In the twins' playroom one morning, Florence overheard the girls recreating the accident that took their sisters' lives. When Florence quietly entered into the room, she saw Jennifer laying on the floor with her arms and legs out, and Jillian holding her head, saying, "The blood is coming out from your eyes. That's where the car hit you." John Pollock said that when he went to identify his daughter's bodies, Jacqueline's head had been bandaged around her forehead right above her eyes. John Pollock also stated that when the twins discussed the accident between themselves, they often spoke in present tense, almost as if they were reliving it. Reincarnation researcher Ian Stevenson caught wind of the bizarre twins after reading about them and their story in the newspaper in 1963. He contacted the family and began an investigation. The twins were only 4 years old at this time, and Ian Stevenson went to their home to interview the parents and the girls thoroughly and examined their birthmarks. The twins went on to live normal lives, and he met the family again in 1967 and then again in 1978 when the twins were 20 years old. When the twins were 20, he arranged for blood tests to determine their zygosity. Is that how you spell it? To determine their zygosity, which proved that they were in fact monozygotic identical twins.
Yep.
Which I don't really know why you'd have to prove that. Like, why did you have to do a blood test?
I think because fraternal twins might look identical, but they're actually 2 separate eggs.
Right. You'd
or
think
2
that the
sperm
mother
or
would
something.
know. Like, when you're presented with identical, they have one placenta, right? They're in one sac. So there's one placenta. So you'd think the mother would have known and, like, didn't need to have a blood test to say, yes, they're identical. Or maybe they just wanted to prove that they were, in fact, identical. I don't know.
Identical twins called monozygotic twins are the result of fertilization of a single egg by a single sperm, with the fertilized eggs splitting into 2.
Yeah. Oh.
Versus 2 eggs.
Okay.
1 egg split into 2.
So, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
One
egg, 1 sperm split into 2.
Gotcha.
Versus
2 separate sperms into 2 separate eggs. I see.
Versus dizygotic is 2 eggs, 2 sperm.
Interesting.
2 genetically unique children.
Okay. So it was, in fact, that they were identical twins. He met with Jillian one last time in 1982, and by this time, the girls had forgotten all of their past life memories, aside for a random dream that Jillian would have on occasion. She would dream about clear visions of living at a home that she could describe in great detail. She also recalled the beautiful garden in the backyard, and she most often envisioned herself playing in a sandbox with her two brothers in her dreams. The home and yard that Jillian remembered was the late sister's and family's home in Wickham, where they lived before they moved to the town of Hexham, where the girls were killed. So that daughter never, even the deceased daughters, weren't. Hold on. Cut that. So the twins never lived in Wickham. They lived in Hexham and moved shortly after. But this girl is remembering before Hexham, a house before. Brother? They have two brothers, two older brothers.
Okay.
Thanks for paying attention.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The adult twins accepted their parents' belief that they were their elder sisters reincarnated, but showed mild skepticism about reincarnation in general. Mr. Stevenson was fascinated by the girls and stated that he found it inconceivable that John and Florence could have molded all the behaviors of their twin daughters to match that of the late girls. Stevenson studied 42 pairs of twins who recall past lives and concluded the Pollock's case along with one other case of identical twins, and their names are Indika and Kakshapa Ashwara. That and the Pollock's case provides some of the strongest existing evidence in favor of reincarnation. In his collection of data of 895 cases of reincarnation, 35% involved birthmarks or birth defects that match past life birthmark scars or wounds of the previous life. So 35% of 800, I can't find it now. What number did I just say? 890.
Yeah.
895 cases. 35% involved a mark that corresponded with the previous life. That's pretty.
That's interesting.
That's pretty big. 35%. Yeah. It's not huge, but it's up there. It's pretty substantial.
I have a question.
What's your question?
Did the girls have an explanation for how they remembered this stuff? What did they think?
No, and around the time of turning 7, their memories did start to slowly fade.
Yeah.
So I know their memories was it was just second nature to them. They didn't know any different. They didn't understand why they were afraid of cars and stuff. I don't think they thought they were reincarnated. I think they just had these memories and they couldn't explain it,
Well, I have questions.
Yeah.
What if it's just genetics?
So
do you think it could be explained away by genetics and even their fear? Kids are smart. They pick up on your fears. Mm-hmm. So maybe.
So the fear thing, like the mother said, obviously they were going to be worried about the road and safety and stuff. Yeah. So they did, instill that extra need of cautiousness. Yeah. But the mother said it was different. It was like a trauma. Phobia. A trauma had occurred. It was as an engine that would rev, they would jump and they were scared. Yeah. But there are skeptics that discuss that, the parents talked about their child's deaths around them, or there was even one that said that the mother thinking about the daughters while she was pregnant could have somehow not reincarnation. I forget how they put it. But basically that it influenced the daughters' brains. Yeah. Okay. And then that was ruled out by another skeptic. The other skeptic said that it was more likely that John, believing so much in reincarnation, told them without even knowing he was telling them that they were reincarnated by their sisters.
Or he created his own reality by the belief itself.
Yeah, because he believed so strongly in it. you know? And then there was other people that said, they might have just been like looking too deep into it, trying to find similarities. And even some people think they lie because the witnesses is really just the mother and father. So there is a lack of witness, like testimony and evidence that's not coming from mom and dad. So,
and he did have like a preconceived belief.
He did. Like he knew.
Obsession before.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he then made it up.
Right.
Because he could have made it up when the kids were born the first time.
Yep.
And been like, oh, they're reincarnated from somewhere else.
Exactly. He did mention that too. He was basically saying like, somebody was like, oh, well, you believe in reincarnation, so that's why. And he was like, well, if I didn't believe in reincarnation, then I would have no reason to find any, similarities or anything. So, I mean, it's your awareness, it's your perception, and so, yeah. It doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means he was more aware, and like for her, she was totally a non-believer, 100%. But by the time, the kids were older, I mean, you're not going to be 4 and just know where the playground is in a city that you've never been to.
Right.
And you're not going to know, people's names, unless that was, but the mother did say that she didn't talk about their deaths at all to them. In fact, she wanted to wait until they were much older for them to learn about their sister.
Yeah.
Their sisters. Because they didn't want them to be sad. Of course, kids are really young to process that kind of thing. So this was all starting really early. Like from the time they could talk, they were talking about Hexam.
Right.
Like it's weird, It definitely goes down as like one of the most, I guess you could say, like, I mean, because again,
most evidence.
Well, I was going to say evidence backed, but like, again, it's like within the family,
right?
So,
right.
But this dude, he's studied quite a lot. I mean, 42 pairs of twins recalled past lives together. That's not just one, that's both twins recalling a past life together. That's pretty cool. And then that was out of 800, of course, 895 or whatever I said that I can never find that number again. 895, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like some theories about birthmarks being, I'm sure you've heard, but like birthmarks is a really fascinating topic. It could be a mini.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
It really could be. Like if you believe that they are from a past life. What's your birthmark?
I have something called a Becker's Nevis on my upper arm.
Interesting.
And it's like a dark spot. A lot of people think it's a bruise. It's not. And it's actually more common in men. And a lot of times you'll see it. The skin is like more rougher and it's like a big dark patch. A lot of times it's almost always on the shoulder and sometimes goes on to the back. But
wait a minute.
Mine's
Let me
just
see.
on my arm.
It sounds just like mine.
See that?
Do you know what my birthmark is?
No.
It's on my shoulder and my back. And
Really?
I never knew the name of it, but
Oh, my dermatologist called another nurse and it was like, come see, she has a Becker's Nevis. I was like, what the fuck?
Interesting. I really like
Look it up.
I'm gonna look it up right now because I was just about to like take off my shirt and show you. Becker's Nevis.
Yeah.
You have had to have seen my birthmark. I've been in bathing suits with you. Becker's Nevis is a non-cancerous large brown birthmark occurring in mostly males on one shoulder and upper trunk. So, yeah, I have it on one shoulder. It looks like that. I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
I have the same birthmark as you, except mine's not hairy because there's two kinds of these Becker's Nevis or whatever. One is hairy and one's not.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I didn't get the hairy one. You didn't either.
No, mine's hairy, but it's just my arm,
but it's
so
not
it's not
like
like
thick
no,
hair.
it's not.
Okay.
It is the hair though.
But I
on
do
my arm.
also feel my skin. We have the same birthmark.
Yeah.
That's
the
weird.
One on my where the hair is, it goes in like a different pattern than the rest of my hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Come over here real quick and look at mine.
Okay.
Come to my mic. Okay. Come way over here. I have a sports bra on, so it's okay. But like, look at this thing. It's massive.
Oh, yeah. Are we related?
I think so. Is
Oh
it
my
the
God,
same
this
side?
This is crazy.
It's
No,
this-
mine's this side. Mine's,
Oh.
we're like mirror images.
But like mine,
yeah, yours goes all the way to
it's
your back.
huge. It's
Yeah.
the corner of my shoulder, like all the way to my back, and I like it. I think it's like it's super unique, but it reminds me of like if I did die in my other life from this, it's like I caught fire.
Yeah, I'm afraid
like-
of fire too.
See
I mean,
that?
not like campfire or anything.
Imagine if we were
but
sisters in another life and
Yeah.
we both died in the same fire, and that's why we have Beckers.
I guess we'll find out.
What are they called? Beckers?
Nevis.
What? Nevises.
Nevis.
Thank you for teaching me what my birthmark's
Hey,
called.
no
I'm
problem.
glad I
I don't-
asked.
I'm glad we
Such a random.
surprised this on air.
Right?
Oh, I also have that weird hole on the side of my head where my brain leaks out at night. No, I'm just kidding. But I do have a hole on the side of my ear.
Oh,
Look that one up.
I have a hole like above my butt crack. Like it's like a dimple.
Oh yeah.
But like it's like a deep divot. Like it doesn't feel normal.
Yeah.
I think it's like a genetic like mutation of some sort. Like I should have had a tail there or something.
Mine is called a preocular pit.
Oh, interesting.
It's a small hole in the front of an upper ear. In the front of the upper ear, just between the face and the cartilage.
Can you Can you just stick like a little ring through it? And
No.
Oh, it's
Everybody
not that.
asks me that. No, it doesn't go anywhere.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just like
Like a little hole.
an indent. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I wonder.
It's harmless.
But yeah. So birthmarks. That's neat. We're neat. See, we're meant to be friends. I don't know a single other person that has the same kind of
I'm
birthmark
pretty
as
sure
me.
it's not very common.
It's not.
In women, especially.
Yeah. That's why it's like really cool that you also. Well, I'm so glad we did this on air.
Yeah.
Yep. That's me, Beckers Nevis. Thank you so much. I feel like, I'm always learning something with you. But yeah, so, I mean, I love this story. I think, you can see the girls now still. They're both alive. And they don't remember those memories. They don't remember any of that at all, actually. Like, they don't remember the things they said. They don't remember the things they did. They don't remember, except Jillian. She has, like, that reoccurring dream of playing in the sand pit with her brothers prior.
But
But she never, ever lived at that home.
but the original twins did.
The original twins
I
did.
see. Okay,
So she's remembering, and actually only the older, the originals were not twins, but the older sister, because the first daughters were not twins.
Oh,
They were
okay.
11 and whatever.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were twins.
You just weren't listening to that
I'm
whole
sorry.
first paragraph.
I was listening,
That's okay.
but I don't know. Maybe I can't focus.
You're like, they have brothers?
Sorry.
It's okay. So yeah, that's my mini. Yeah, do you have any
I
other
know
things?
that there are question marks with the spiritual belief that we create our own reality, but I do really believe that.
Yeah.
I know that it doesn't always fit because it, like we've talked about, it's so hard to say that to somebody that really doesn't have control of a situation, and it's honestly disrespectful, and I struggle with that a lot because I do believe that we do, to some extent, create our own reality. And I
Yeah.
think it's interesting that his actual belief was that.
I do
and
think
that's
so.
what became.
Yeah, I really do
At least
think,
in his own mind.
Yeah, it had to have something to do with him. It had to, because
Yeah.
he was just all about it. And to be a Catholic and to feel that way so strongly and to pray
Maybe he
about
had
it.
like a precognition or something.
Definitely.
Maybe that's how it went. Instead, maybe that's why he was obsessed
He
with
felt
it.
like it was like a premonition, you
Yeah,
know, and he just
yeah.
kept saying like he doesn't understand how he knows, but he just knows. Like,
Right.
Which, I mean,
They're creepy looking too.
yeah. You mean
They're old pictures.
Yeah, they are. The little girls' original photos, the sisters.
Yeah.
If you Google them, they are creepy in those photos. Wicked old photos, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's neat. That was our first reincarnation story.
Yeah, we have a bunch of them that we gotta do.
Yeah, there's so many really good stories of kids. I love it. I really do truly believe that we all have lived before, and a lot of us remember, but we lose it. And some of us are not as articulate as others. Maybe some are not as sensitive, maybe some, during birth, get some injuries, and the brain's not functioning. They're not going to remember shit, But I think that for the most part, we all have lived before. We just don't remember.
That's my belief.
Yeah.
Maybe not on Earth, but I think that your human form is just housing your
Absolutely.
actual self, and that never dies. That's energetic. It just goes on and on and on forever.
Yeah, absolutely. We are made of energy, and our souls are continuous.
At least that's what I choose to believe, because I think that is what makes me feel secure and happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not a belief for everybody, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that's okay too. Don't come at us.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If you don't believe, because
I'm not scared anymore.
We're just telling stories.
Yep, we're just telling stories. I wish we could remember that tagline that we thought up that time about,
Don't stomp on my imagination.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Because it is. It's just fun to think about whether you believe it or not. A lot of the stuff that we research, even the ones I research myself, I don't know if I believe. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't think one way or the other. I just think it's what if is so fun to think about, and to never stop wondering and having excitement. Yeah. It's exciting to me to think about.
Me too. Save the small talk. Let's talk about the universe.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's it. It was a great ending.
It was. We will see you next week. Stay mysterious.
Why is my voice like that? I'm like, stay mysterious.